Hi everyone, it's me, Krylios, Team Rayceen Productions MC and producer. And once again, we have a fantastic guest with us, and I'll give him the opportunity to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Remington A. Gregg. I have a bit of a long title, but I'm Counsel for Civil Justice and Consumer Rights at Public Citizen, which is a national nonprofit. I work on civil rights issues, issues related to access to justice, consumer protection, and ensuring that Black and Brown people have adequate protection in the marketplace.
Awesome. And that's something that's really, really important, especially now as we look at all the different ways and means and issues that affect Black and Brown people, and the systemic things that have held Black and Brown people back for so long, not having access to certain things, not knowing about certain stuff because of lack of education in those certain ways. Talk to me a little bit about how you help Black and Brown people to achieve equity in these ways.
Well, it's incredibly important. And as you said, for so long, people have been talking about equality. And it really isn't about equality. It's about equity, ensuring that everyone has an equal chance at opportunities to provide for themselves and for their families. And so there are a lot of different ways in which we try to do that. And one is in the housing domain, protecting people against foreclosures, especially with COVID, ensuring that people were protected. During COVID, Senate Republicans in Congress wanted to strip away protections that would help ensure that workers were safe, so that they could sue if they weren't safe, their employer. And obviously, the people who were most impacted by that were Black and Brown people who were going to work every single day, whereas lots of people were able to stay at home. Black and Brown people had to get on public transportation, and they had to deal with people every day. And so what we try to do is, obviously, we work on behalf of all consumers, and we work on behalf of all workers. But in particular, I like to center my work around Black and Brown people because for too long, they have been a byproduct in the work that we generally do as a country, and fail to center policy making around Black and Brown people. And the impact of that has been years and years and centuries of inequality that we're still seeing impacting all of us today.
Certainly. Wow. And we talk about that all of that impacting us today. Talk to me a little bit about how certain, because I know in this time there are many people who are looking at all of the different ways how certain things affect certain people. I just graduated from college not too long ago, some years ago, but not too long ago. And I don't have student loans, but I know that is a big issue for many recent grads, and it gets that way more and more as time goes on. And many times Black and Brown people are disproportionately affected when it comes to that and paying those back. Talk to me about that.
Well, you're absolutely right. And it is a huge problem, not only because it's really hard to pay back, but because it prevents us from building up wealth in the future. So people say, well, the way to get ahead in life is to get an education. Okay, so if you don't have access to generational wealth, the only way to be able to go to college is to borrow money to do that. But if you are starting on unequal footing, then you're going to continue to be at a disadvantage. So when Black borrowers graduate college, 4 years after college, they owe double the amount that white borrowers own. And in fact, throughout the life of a loan, Black borrowers default at double the rates of white people. So not only are we dealing with having to pay back more, but oftentimes defaulting more, which does a lot to your credit, and not good stuff to your credit, which then impacts whether you can buy a car so that you can travel to work, or whether you can buy a house. If you have a ton of student debt, you're not able to buy a house. And as I said earlier about generational wealth, the biggest way to build generational wealth is to buy property, house, condo, what have you. And if you are saddled with a huge amount of student loan debt, which, by the way, going back to earlier, people said the only way to get ahead in life is to get a college education. So you do that, and then you're saddled with that debt. You cannot build that generational wealth to not only help you, but then to help your family, or then to help your children then go to college. And so then it's just and then your kids have to borrow, and so then it's just
the cycle, and it continues. Certainly.
Exactly. And so that's why we are urging the president to cancel student debt. It's within his authority. He has the authority to cancel student debt. Americans own $1.7 trillion worth of student debt. Imagine what we could do, what Black and brown people could do if they didn't have, on average, people have $30,000 worth of debt. Imagine what they could do if they weren't saddled with that. So we think that is one of the most important issues of our time. It's not only an issue related to students or consumers, but is a racial justice issue, it's a gender justice issue, because these are the people who are being held back because of these student loans.
Certainly. And, when we talk about equity and we talk about civil rights, we can't speak about that without also speaking about, LGBT people and LGBTQ rights as well. And of course, we've seen things get better over the years, but there's still, a ways to go. And we just came out of Pride Month, and, a different pride than years before. Talk to me a little bit about, Pride Month, the last one that we just had, and what, civil justice and equity looks like for LGBTQ people moving forward.
So as a civil rights lawyer, and as a queer person of color, these issues are important to me. In addition to obviously just racial justice issues, and then of course, before Public Citizen, I was a lawyer at the Human Rights Campaign, and so working in that space, and then also having the experience of living it, I think gives me some interesting perspective. Exactly. We've come a long way, and that's incredibly important. And we've come a long way both as it relates to social issues and as it relates to legal protections. We still have a long way to go. Obviously, there still is no holistic protections, which I think the Equality Act would give in a whole manner of ways. We also tend to short shrift our protections as it relates to our trans brothers and sisters. And then also the inequity in the queer community for Black and brown people. And that's something that I think lots of people don't want to talk about. They say, we've gotten some protections, what more do you want? And they don't realize that it's unequal protections, that protections related to marriage, for example, impact white queer people more because, again, they have more wealth, they're building more wealth, and so it's more important to be able to pass that on. But we don't have as many protections as it relates to, say, adoption and foster care, which a lot of Black and brown queers take in a lot of children from the foster system and adopt children. And so there's inequality there, just in policies, and then just socially. We don't want to talk about how there are a lot of white people, LGBTQ people who don't have any Black or brown people in their spaces. And that's, I'm talking about friend group or romantic or networking, or all the above. And it's, it's not just about, whether or not you're interested in dating a Black and brown person, that puts that to the side. But if you have no friends, no people in your network, right? Our networks are how we tend to, get jobs, right? And how we tend to help each other out by people in our circle. And so if everyone in your circle looks like you, only the people in your circle, only the people who look like you will be getting those experiences, will be
Yes.
getting those advantages. And that is the point. It's not just about, oh, let me into your world because I don't need to be part of your world. But I do think what we need to do, and we need to be very clear about it and hold people to account if they talk about Black Lives Mattering,
Yes.
that they have Black and brown people in their circles. They are living that mantra in their life, and not just talking about it or posting a black square just so that people get off their backs. And so I think we have a lot more work to do. I mean, you look at what happened in DC, where I am based, with the gay bars. I won't name names, but
We've spoken about it on this channel at length. So
good. We've all had these experiences. We've all seen what happens. I refuse to go to some of these establishments. And what that does is it just makes it even harder for me to meet people because they're so.
It is, and many of these establishments have been closed down too. Throughout the pandemic. When I just moved to DC, the amount of gay spaces that we had, it's not the same number today. A lot that were here when I got here are closed within the last a year or 2 years. So. And then the ones that remain, we are having these problems. So, it's slim pickings. Slim pickings.
And we can do but so much. You have to kind of get in kind of white LGBTQ community, but also I and many others, I think, are no longer interested in kind of the niceties of it. Either you're in or you're out.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes people uncomfortable. But, I think a lot of people in the racial justice world, in the LGBTQ movement, in the gender justice world are just tired of the platitudes without the substance. And so I think that's next frontier in terms of pride. It's not just about going out. It's great to go out. It's great to be prideful. I did that, but you got to go out and hold people to account to make this community better than it is, and realize its real potential.
Certainly. And for viewers who want to support or go out of their way to make sure that they are doing the work in whatever way that may be to ensure racial justice and the civil rights and justice all across this nation, how can they go about and do that? How can they do that?
Well, you can get involved, and I think it sounds a little trite, but I would say certainly get involved at the local level. I think what we're seeing right now is that so much happens at the local level, and people don't know about it. So you look at voter restriction laws happening at the local level. You look at laws targeting trans people happening at the local level. So getting out into your community and voicing your opposition to these things, supporting elected officials who are fighting against these things and opposing the other ones is important. And also, I think just making sure that your voice is heard. You got to go out and vote. We did a great job. A lot of people did a great job during the last election and getting out and voting and telling their friends and family to get out. But that has to continue. That can't be a one-off sort of thing, because Republicans all across the map and up and down the ballot are working hard to limit the right to vote. And sometimes in small ways, but small ways can, matter. There's a member of Congress who won by like 60 votes the last time around. I mean, it might even been smaller than that. So every vote does count. And so you have to come out and vote. And even when there's a long line, even when it's hot, I get that. But our rights are on the line every single ballot. And it's exhausting. I get it. It is exhausting. But if we're not going to fight for ourselves, who's going to fight for us? So
certainly. And for people who want to keep up with you, follow you, keep up with whatever you're doing, how can they go about and do that?
I am on Twitter at Gregg. Please follow. I'm pretty active, I think, and I'm always happy to interact and to highlight issues related to Black and Brown people, LGBTQ people, and anything else that's of importance to our communities. That's the best way to stay in touch.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining me today. It's such a pleasure to have you here. And it's been a fantastic chat. Thank you for all the work that you do in our community.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. We thank our production sponsors, Whitman Walker Health and Bite the Fruit, for continuously supporting Team Rayceen Productions. Thank you.